We often hear about the ego in our daily lives. We talk about it as if it's something obvious, something we can point to and say, that's it. That's the source of all our problems. But what if it's not as straightforward as we think? What if this force, the ego, is silently shaping our lives in ways we can't even see? Imagine for a moment a life where everything you do is filtered through a lens of self-importance. You act, speak, and even think, all as a response to how others might view you or how you want to be seen. In a world like this, what's left of you? What happens to the true essence of who you are when it's obscured by this veil? This isn't a new concern, In fact, it's been something people have thought about for centuries. A long time ago, there were those who understood the destructive power of this self we cling to so tightly. They noticed something: our attachment to this idea of I causes us to misunderstand our place in the world. It makes us think we are separate from the whole, when in reality we're just a part of something much bigger. For some, this idea was a sort of awakening, a way to break free from the cycles of suffering. You might be surprised, but there were those who believed the answer was simplicity itself, embracing the present moment without the need to constantly assert our individual significance. The ego, in many ways, can be seen as a mask. We wear it so that we can feel safe, so we can belong, so we can control. But in doing so, we become disconnected from the flow of life, from the world around us, and even from our own deeper self. We constantly chase after validation, approval, and recognition, all in the name of this constructed identity we've built. The truth is, the more we identify with this ego, the more we become enslaved to it. And the more we chase these fleeting things, the more we find ourselves feeling empty. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. No matter how tightly you grip, it slips away. But here's the interesting part. This isn't something new. Think back to the wise thinkers of ancient times. They spoke of something greater than the ego, something essential and eternal. They suggested that the key to freedom lies not in the pursuit of power, wealth, or fame, but in the relinquishment of the need for these things. It's easy to forget, but there was a time when the quest wasn't for personal gain. The true goal was peace, understanding, and harmony with the world. The mind, when freed from the shackles of constant desire, becomes clear. It becomes still. And in that stillness, the wisdom to truly live begins to emerge. So how do we break free from the grip of the ego? Well, the answer isn't some complex philosophy or intellectual exercise. It's in the simplicity of awareness, simply observing our thoughts, noticing when the ego is trying to take control, and then gently letting go. When we quiet the mind, we begin to see the world as it truly is, not as we want it to be, or how we imagine others see it, but just as it is. No judgment, no need to label, no desire to control. It's in that pure observation that we reconnect with what's real. Now, this path isn't easy. Our entire lives are built around this notion of self. It's a constant, relentless drive, one that keeps us chasing after more success, more validation, more of everything. But what if we took a step back? What if we paused for just a moment to consider that perhaps, just perhaps, the answer isn't in adding more to our lives, but in taking away? The key to liberation from the ego isn't in fighting it directly. Instead, it's about recognizing its subtle presence and choosing to live beyond its limitations, to be mindful of our attachments and desires, and to consciously step away from them when we see them arise. And as we do this, something beautiful happens. We start to feel a sense of peace that doesn't depend on the world around us or on the image we project to others. We become more grounded, more authentic, and less concerned with how we appear. The ego no longer has the same power over us, and for the first time in a long while, we begin to experience life just as it is, raw, unfiltered, and full of possibility. And as we do this, something beautiful happens. We start to feel a sense of peace that doesn't depend on the world around us or on the image we project to others. We become more grounded, more authentic, and less concerned with how we appear. The ego no longer has the same power over us, and for the first time in a long while, we begin to experience life just as it is, raw, unfiltered, and full of possibility. So, as you move forward, remember freedom doesn't come from the pursuit of more, but from the courage to let go, to step beyond the ego and simply be. And in that simple being, you'll find a life more true, more rich, and more alive than you ever thought possible.